All right, I'm going to get back to our agenda here. Check on the requirement, the compliance data, the military type, and let's cross-reporting off the list. So why don't you take us through when it comes to registering or reporting these assets, either with IRAPT, and make sure everybody understands what that is, and or the IUID registry. How does the data reporting come into play of this asset data?
Well, frankly, Peter, the reporting is just as important as the label. Within your contract, as I mentioned earlier, if you're wondering whether or not you have a requirement for IUID, you'll look for either MIL-STD-130 or the DFARS clause 252.211.7003. The reporting requirement is also under DFARS clause 252.211.7007. That will probably be in your contract as well. However, if it's not, if you have an IUID requirement, that is just the marking requirement. That's just the label itself. So you've marked your asset, which is great, but you've really only gone halfway. The second part of this is you have to tell the government what you have. You have to report it. And what that does is it simply is telling the government, here are the assets that I have out there, who has the custody of them, the value, etc. So you've got the asset marked. It can be tracked because it has a 2D barcode, so if it changes custody, for example, whatever the case may be, the life of the asset is ended, whatever you want to call it. That's all reported to the government, so the government knows exactly what they have. And the reporting process is done, as you mentioned earlier, through IRAPT eventually to the IUID registry, which that's the database that the government keeps record of all their assets.
And just for everyone here, IRAPT, if you're not familiar with that system, because you might be, say, on the production or the property side of the house, where maybe you don't have as much exposure to IRAPT, although that will start to increase if you don't quite yet. IRAPT does stand for Invoice, Receipt, Acceptance, and Property Transfer. It has become the go-to system for the government for any assets or equipment, or from your perspective, end item deliverables that are being delivered to the government, or any custody transfers back and forth, whether it's between government entities or contractors and government, or even contractors to contractors, right? So all of this data is now being reported to and feeding these systems, these government systems, and the automation has to be there so that you're getting the data there accurately, and I think that's worth emphasizing.
And again, that's going back to, Pete, again, to the basics of MIL-STD-130, where you want to be sure you're picking that right material so that that label is lasting for the lifetime of that asset, so that any movement of that asset is simply scanned by the barcode and it's tracked, and then, of course, eventually reported.